Wells Fargo week on the PGA Tour, and the two biggest names, the two biggest odds makers who have been winning all the money lately are not playing. Jon Rahm and Scotty Scheffler are out. What does that mean for the field? And is Rory McIlroy really the guy to beat this week? I know he's been unstoppable at Quail Hollow, but a deep dive into his history here, we're going to do that coming up. Plus, Drew Matthews from Run Pure Sports is here, the owner and founder of Fantasy Golf Bags back in the day. Going to show you the best way and the smartest way to pick your DFS lineup each week. And everyone who bets on golf knows Drew as the $1 million winner from back in 2018. But Drew, we're not going to talk about your past. I know you're a successful guy. You want to look at the future and what you do for helping people make money. Thanks for being on Find the Fairway Live.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. Look forward to talking to Wells Fargo.
So, in the last 5 years, I'm sure your life has changed. You've probably put a lot of pressure on yourself to make good golf picks and make good money. Has your mentality on golf betting changed since you won all that money in 2018?
From a betting standpoint, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not too much. I
No.
mean, obviously the bankroll changed quite a bit, but the strategies behind the decision making doesn't change. But yeah, obviously playing some different contests, which has been nice. Some weeks I wish I didn't play in some contests. So, but yeah, it drastically changed from 2018 to now. But it's been a fun ride, and hopefully we have many more years to go.
You've got a strategy that you think works for your DFS lineup. So what I wanted to do today was have you tell the random viewer, because you're kind of the poster child for people who want to win money doing DFS golf or gambling golf, and how to do that. What are your strategies each week? We're going to get into the Wells Fargo here in a minute. What are your general strategies that you say you would tell a random person who wants to pick their smartest and best fantasy lineup each week?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, it always boils down to recent form and
Mm,
course history,
yeah.
and you're really trying to do a mix. And what goes into recent form, you can pick apart different stats and do everything that you want. But I think for the average person, if you pick some high level stats, strokes gained tee to green, look how guys are hitting the ball off the tee and their approaches. That's a pretty good tell on what their future might hold. But honestly, I'm a big course history guy. I love finding courses
Mm.
where guys have played there well year after year. We just saw last week at the Mexico Open the exact top three from 2022 finished top three in 2023. Doesn't always happen like that, but I do like looking at course history, and I have a history. My background's in playing golf, so I have a decent feel for when courses set up well for the same type of player. So I think honestly, you're looking at values. You're trying to find guys that are playing well, might be underpriced. I rarely pay up, so like we'll talk about Rory here in a minute. I don't always like paying up unless it's well deserved, like Ron last week. I'm really trying to find the values, try to pepper the mid range. I think that's where the money's made. If you can find the best mid range values, that is where honestly that's probably four of your six players in every lineup are coming from. So that's where I like to go. I like to start cheap and move my way up.
It changes every week, obviously, picking a top dog, so to speak, and not finding their value. It seems like lately, with the Roms and the Schefflers, and when Homa was on a hot streak, and kind of Rory a little bit too, that kind of started to throw people off on maybe I should be picking top players, but maybe we're getting back into a mold of random players and those middle of the pack guys that you're talking about winning on the PGA Tour. And this week at the Wells Fargo, it's going to be a little different without Rahm and Scheffler, yes, but they are back to Quail Hollow because there have been a handful of years where they had to leave for different reasons. And the vast majority of winners here, Drew, it's fascinating because it's everywhere. I mean, in terms of their odds to win. Rory was all over the place. We don't know what the deal is going to be with that. And here are your top three odds winners right here. Rory at plus 750 is way down from what it would have been. And then Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, the next two players on the list who are predicted to win this event. Now, what does that mean? Because Schauffele and Cantlay, if you're not a fan of those guys, Drew, you could easily say that they are disasters to bet on because they usually don't come up at the top. They kind of flirt at the top, and then you think they're going to do well, and then they have a bad Saturday or a bad Sunday, and they're off the list. Do you like either of those guys this week?
I actually like Scheffler, or sorry, Xander a good
No.
bit this week. Cantley is fine too, but you're exactly right. And I think, like I said about the top price guys every single week, this year has been a lot different. I mean, we have a lot of elevated events. I think that West Coast swing, we had like 5 of 7 events were elevated, including the Masters. So I I don't like paying up on these type of weeks because I mean the 9K range is so littered with good players with a lot of win equity. It's not like years past where like we have McIlroy and then it's basically one other guy and nobody. So yeah, I do like Cantley. I think they're super solid, but you're paying an extreme premium for them. And if you just go down $1,000, you got guys with similar win equity that tend to pop, and that's kind of what I lean towards. Especially this year's just been different with the elevated events, and I like the value plays, trying to find them in the 8 9K range.
You use the term paying up. Rory McIlroy is the epitome of paying up this week. And here's the deal. Everyone wants to dog Rory for how he did at the Masters and the Players. But Drew, if you look at the 3 times he won at Quail Hollow, 2021, 2015, and 2010, his results leading up to those wins really weren't any different than what we've seen this year. Now, I'm not here to talk up Rory. I'm just here to highlight the fact that just because he's missed the cut at the Masters and the Players this year doesn't mean he's out and down for the count, because you saw 2021 and 2010, he did the exact same thing. 2015, he was on a tear. That was his 3 year stretch where he was basically unbeatable at times. Here's my deal, though. I don't think we should look at it this way, because to me, it feels like this is different than those other years when he's missed cuts at big events. To me, it feels like Rory's in a different mental space, and we don't know what that is. We don't know why he withdrew from Heritage. We may never know. We don't know if his confidence is shot, if he doesn't feel well, if something's wrong physically. No clue, and we may never know. I just feel like right now something is off with Rory, and he is not a guy you want to pick, because to me, it feels like those Masters and Players situations hit a little differently in my mind.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, the Masters, I think he shot 77 in round two. I mean, that's not good. Everyone else is going pretty low, and he had the good wave. So yeah, I think something's up. And again, I can make the argument with a field this strong, he's not like the guy that really makes or breaks your lineups. I mean, you could go down the list pretty far down, and you feel like all these guys have a really good chance of winning. So even with his good course history of winning this event 3 times, I think he's in a different state. Like you said, he's not playing very well. His one good finish at the Arnold Palmer was still a little bit sketchy. I think it was just a matter of other guys struggled more so than Rory playing really well. So yeah, I don't love paying up for Rory right now. Like I kind of want to see something before I pay up for that, because he is extremely expensive. I mean, honestly, you could go $2,000 cheaper and save so much salary. So that's the kind of the way my mind works: is what am I giving up? What's my opportunity cost there?
Is he going to make enough birdies to earn you enough points, is basically what it comes down to. And I really feel like with Rory's mental space this year, what we're talking about, that he always plays his best golf when people don't assume he's going to do anything. Because he's been on this big high for the last 5 months and everybody's picking him. He's back down to earth. And I'm not really sure if that is a stage in his game right now where he is ready to get out of that funk. It might take some time. So, with that said, your best bets this week, you love going middle of the pack. You just said that. You found Tommy Fleetwood at plus 7,000. Where was that at?
Yeah, I'll have to pull it up. So I use Data Golf to compare all the books, and I want to say it was PointsBet. Yeah, it was. I think it was PointsBet. So go find that. But that range, I think the low was like 50 to 1, if I'm not mistaken, or 45 to 1. So yeah, you could definitely shop values. I mean, that's obviously a key component for people in legal states, is shop the books. I mean, you won't see a big number on Young. Like I looked around there, actually
Oh,
22
yeah.
was the best. First was like 19 to 1. So like you're in a small window. But like if you can open up another account and find Fleetwood at 70 to 1 versus 45 to 1 on DK or something like that, it makes a world of difference. So
To me, Cameron Young is the player who could go one of two ways in his career. He could just kind of reach that top, and once he does, he just takes off and he's a massive star. Or he could be like a Fleetwood, Drew. He could be one of those guys who's just trying to figure out how to win on the PGA Tour. And I understand why you pick Fleetwood here is because plus 7,000, why not? You feel like he might win eventually, right? Or maybe he won't. Cameron Young's the kind of guy where you feel like he's going to win, and he's still a young guy, and he has years, he has time, and once he does, his game's going to take off. You could have kind of said the same thing about Sam Burns a couple of years ago. And when he finally did cross that finish line and get a victory, he took off. Now, he's been up and down. What do you like about Sam Burns this week?
Yeah, I think he's finally playing well. This is a big golf course, so the two things that I looked at the most. So course history matters a bit, but again, this is a pretty strong field of what we've seen in the past. We've seen good fields here, but I think this is a pretty deep field as we go down the board. Burns has all the qualities of good off the tee and good approach numbers, and he's shown that the last couple weeks. Obviously, winning the match play, that was fantastic, but we saw that kind of trend as he finished up the Florida swing. So I just think it's a perfect fit for him. This golf course rewards the longer guys. And if, besides Fleetwood being just a good ball striker, the trend that I'm looking for is like a Cameron Young. Guy's long off the tee. If his irons are good, he should have a good week. Same with Burns. And Burns is really up and down. Like, I'm not on Burns a lot. I know some guys just love Burns every week. I'm very picky on Burns. So
Right.
whenever I'm on Burns, it's a rare occasion. So hopefully it comes through for this week.
So for my best bets, I went a different direction. Is there a reason why no one's talking about Max Homa right now? I think the reason why no one's talking about him is because we're seeing this Scheffler and this Rom tear. But Drew, let me list off Max Homa's results since he won back in January at the Farmers. The way this guy's been playing really has not been that bad. Let me pull it up here. Max Homa, since his win at the Farmers, second at Genesis, sixth at the Players, when Scotty Scheffler was just dominant. If he wouldn't have won that, Tyrrell Hatton would have been the winner. Ninth at the match play, and then he's getting a bad rap for missing the cut at Heritage, which is a golf course that's so unique. Who cares? Throw that out. Masters, he shot a 78 on Sunday at the Masters. His long, terrible round, and he finished tied for 43rd. Max Homa, I feel like, is probably playing better golf than people want to give him credit for. It's incredibly hard to continue to stay at the top. He's won multiple times at Wells Fargo. He's won on this course. Max Homa at plus 2,400 kind of struck me that he was that low because it feels like he's getting down to that range of a good value pick that people aren't talking about, and they're not talking about him for the wrong reasons. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I took a hard look at him. The two wins was what I was looking at, and then I realized last year was at Potomac River or whatever it was.
Exactly.
Not the same golf course, but
Yeah.
it's a weird event for him. He's got a miscut and like a DFL after the cut, and then he's got his win. So it's been kind of hit or miss. And then obviously with his recent form, certainly that scares off myself and other people. Of course, like Augusta, I fully expected him to play decent as well as he's been playing because he was teeing it up pretty well, playing pretty good almost everywhere he played. I mean, the Players Championship is not a course like you see on the West Coast. Everyone was telling me, he's a West Coast guy with a win and a second at the Genesis. I kind of bought into it. Played well at the Players, so I assumed he would take that to the Masters. Did not do that. The Heritage, yes, a different golf course. So yeah, he's fine. But I mean, for the value, I think there's just more value up top than where Homa is. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I mean, the spin up, you could get up to Cantley and stuff. It's not a huge difference. So I like the consistency. I guess that's probably where I would lean.
It's also the moniker of him not playing well in majors. This is not a major. Maybe this is a week where he gets back into that form that everyone loved seeing 2 months ago. Tyrrell Hatton is the kind of guy who I feel like his whole thing that everybody loves to talk about is his mental space. And he's never going to win big because of that mental demon he has and can't get out of his own way. If we take that out of the equation, Hero Hatton is the kind of guy who can be a top 10 superstar. I don't think we talk enough about him and the way he hits the ball and when he is on and in the right mental space. He's the kind of player who can play as well as anybody else in the world, and that plus 4,800, I want to jump on that all day because he's the kind of guy with the talent. Now, if he goes out and has a couple of bogeys, a double bogey, he might be toast. So you're kind of playing with fire there with that one, right?
Yeah, no, I like Hatton quite a bit. I'm a Hatton guy. I mean, if he gets a little bit fiery, that's not the end of the world. He hasn't been great. That's probably been my biggest holdback. But yeah, when he is on, you're 100% correct. When he is on, he is one of the best players in the world. He's probably top 5 in the world when he's really playing well. He's a really good driver of the golf ball. He controls his wedges really well. Both two things you got to do well at this golf course. So yeah, I have no issues with Hatton. If he's close to 50-1, that's really good. And like I said, he's a perfect example as you go down this board. He has a lot of win equity. Like I would not be surprised at all if Hatton won this event. He seems like a prototypical guy that if he drives it accurate, he's long enough. So he drives it accurate, he's in good shape on this golf course. So yeah, love that call.
So the third person on my list, Jason Day. I feel like there are a lot of different opinions on Jason Day right now. I would probably think that the majority of people are saying Jason Day peaked a long time ago. He peaked 8 years ago, and he's never going to get back to that form that everybody loved. And picking him was so easy back in 2015, that era. Or you can go the opposite way and say maybe he's on like the Jordan Spieth kind of track where he got super hot and then had to figure out how to keep it for a handful of years, getting injured, and maybe getting back to the form that he was. Maybe not exactly the form that he was, but the form that he was good enough because his results this year have been promising. 7th at Farmers, 5th at Phoenix, 9th at Genesis, 10th at Arnold Palmer, 5th at Match Play. That is a handful of top 10s right there. But is there a reason why people aren't looking at Jason Day to be a winner? I know it hasn't happened recently. You think there's a reason for that?
I think it's honestly just the field.
Uh,
He hasn't won in a long time. He's been extremely consistent. I've been on Day all year. Love it. I forget what week it probably took a couple weeks for him, but I was like, this is like 2016 all over again. I mean, he's been playing so consistent. He gained strokes with a putter. You need that. Like that's not a bad thing. But his ball striking has been on point. He's been very consistent. I think it's just a matter of this field. And at 2,800, I mean, if you go a little bit higher, you've got guys that have actually won, multiple times in the last 2 years. So I think it's a bit of the value stretch for Jason Day at 2,800 is tough to get to. Don't hate the call. He's obviously playing great. Again, the same guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he won. This is a good course for him. I think it's just a matter of the deeper field. Sometimes it's tough to wrap your head around it. Like for me, I love Cam Young. I think he's perfect. He's only 400 or 600 less than Jason Day. So that's kind of the way my mind works, and I'm sure people look at the same way. Like, has he won? And Cameron Young hasn't won, but I still think he is on the the upward trajectory. Day's probably reached that point this year, and maybe he's just going to flatten out to finish top 20 every week, but never win. So we'll see what happens.
You also have to acknowledge that straight up betting and gambling on a player is so different from fantasy. Guys will
Yes.
rack up points for you as we get into your daily fantasy lineup here, the 5 guys that you have on your board for this week. It's very different. You've got Patrick Cantlay, not because you think he can win and get you these extra points, but look how many points he's averaging per week for you. And he is expensive, yes, but you got to assume that Patrick Cantlay is going to make a ton of birdies. And that's my assumption for why you have him on here.
Pretty much, yeah. I think his consistency, again, he's been playing really, really well, kind of under the radar well. He's expensive to get to, but I like his floor, if you will, more than like paying up for McIlroy. So save a little bit of money there. Play Cantley. He feels like a lock for a top 10 every week he tees it up. So it's just a good, if you want a high price guy, that's the guy that I want to kind of put my hat on. Like I want a guy that's going to be fairly consistent. I don't want to sweat my expensive guy. And for me, McIlroy is the opposite. Like if I played McIlroy in my main lineup this week, I'd be sweating it Thursday morning at 5 a.m. I'd be waking up wondering, did I
Yank
make
him
a
out.
mistake? So yeah, so Cantley could certainly fail, but he's been so consistent, and he fits the mold of good drivers on this golf course. I want to start my lineup there.
No blaming there whatsoever. Victor Hovland is a guy. He's to me, I mean, he's won on the PGA Tour, but I make the argument he hasn't won a big relevant event on the PGA Tour, and you can easily make that argument. I think
Yeah.
he's a home run here at Wells Fargo. The way he's been playing is sneaky good the last few months. He's a birdie machine. He is going to rack up so many points for so many people.
Just again, he's a great fit, and he is a scorer for sure. I mean, you don't get to 7 under through 12 holes at Augusta National if you can't score very well. So, Victor Hovland, again, in my mind, I try to picture these guys playing a golf course based on the history we've seen, and driving is a huge factor. Driving distance is a huge factor. He has both of those. He's been playing very well anyway, so the recent form checks out. Yeah, I think Hovland's probably overall my favorite play, to be honest. I mean, based on where he's priced, I would start a lot of lineups with Victor Hovland this week.
He feels like he was like Justin Thomas a couple of years ago when Justin Thomas was right on that border of that value pick, and he could make you so many points. But Justin Thomas has been going down, and I think there's a reason why nobody's talking about him, even in DFS. Gary Woodland, I picked him to win last week in Mexico. Massive fail. Why do you like Gary Woodland this week? I know why you like him because it's the same reason why I liked him last week. He's due to do well.
Yeah, and he's shown some form on this golf course. But yeah, his ball striking has been great. And again, he is cheap enough that that's kind of where I want to go. Like, to start the show off, like I'm always thinking of values. Like that's you can't really build a good lineup if you don't have values. You
Right.
can pick out.
Multiple.
It's not very hard. It's not hard to pick Cantley. It's not hard to pick Hovland. It's not hard to pick Spieth. Whoever else. It's harder when you go down the board and you're like, now who down here is not gonna is it's not gonna screw up my entire process. And Woodland is cheap enough this week to build a lot of good lineups, and his floor seems high for how well he's striking it on a golf course like this. So I think Woodland, like I think he has a fifth place 2 years ago. So he's has some type of record here that's decent. But yeah, to your point, you played him last week for this probably the same reasons I'm going to play him this week. His ball striking has been so good. I feel like the floor is pretty safe, and he's cheap enough where that's really all I'm looking for. I just want safety, and he checks all those boxes.
You love value. Your ultimate value here is Emiliano Grillo. Look, he's not going to win. Period. I will bet you whatever you want to bet that Emiliano Grillo is
Yeah.
not going to win this week, but he's going to get you points because he's going to make a lot of good shots, a lot of good plays, a lot of birdies. He's going to be a good value pick for you. And the guy is very underrated when it comes to ball striking and putting up good scores. He's going to have the random bad round, but I understand completely why you picked him here.
Yeah, and again, the same reason the same thing that I talked about when we started the show. I try to cross up recent form with course history. He's got a T14 and a T9 the last couple of years. Recent form has been great. He has two top 15s, I think, coming into this week. And again, as the value plays go, all the top guys are going to be very consistent week over week. So like the guys will have bad rounds or bad events here and there, but like the cheap guys are really where I'm going to say, hey, he's been terrible for 3 or 4 months. In the last month, he's starting to pick it up. I want to play him now. Like now's the time to play him before he regresses back to what he's been. And Grillo and the guy you're going to name next is in the same boat. I want to play these cheap guys that are starting to play well or currently playing well, and I'm just trying to catch them while they're hot. Really.
I was just going to say, I need you to explain yourself on Will Gordon because I'm not on that train. Pitch me here. Pitch all of us here.
To be honest, it's a lot of last week. I think this golf course is very different than Vedanta Vallarta. Probably butchered that name, but it's a little bit different than Mexico Open. There you go. The driving is a big factor for me, and I played a lot of Will Gordon earlier in the year, and he's been terrible. Last week he showed me a little bit of something, so I'm basically just viewing it off of what his course fit is. I think if he's playing well, this course is a perfect fit for him. He's very long off the tee. He can be very accurate, obviously, when he's playing well. As a cheap guy, a very, very cheap guy this week, I'm just trying to catch someone that's playing decent. And a lot of times on these cheap guys, just looking at last week's event goes a long way. These guys will tend to roll out 2 or 3 events in a row where they're playing decent. And again, looking at value, looking at guys that are playing well, he showed me something last week. I think, personally, the biggest factor this week for me is driving for these cheap guys especially. And Gordon is one of the longest guys on tour in a story period. And if he plays well this week off the tee, I think he's setting himself up for a really good week. So I don't think he's going to win, but honestly, he's one of those guys that he could come out of nowhere like we saw Homa a couple years ago when he won here. Gordon could potentially be one of those guys that gets in the hunt over the weekend. I would not be surprised because his game showed that earlier in the fall and earlier this year in California.
And I see what you're doing here. You are playing the ultimate odds game. If you've picked him all year and he's been garbage for you, he's due to be good at some point, people, right? Like he's eventually going to figure it out. Why not this week for you? I'm going to go through my picks real quickly here. I tried to make him a little different from yours. I had to pick Hovland. I had to do it for the price and how many birdies I think he's going to make. You'll notice I took Cam Young and Tommy Fleetwood from your best bets category. Here's my thought on Tommy Fleetwood. He's not going to win a PGA Tour event until he proves everybody wrong and does it. He's just not. He has to get that demon out of his head and figure it out, but he is still going to have some really good rounds and make you a lot of money and a ton of points. He is as close to a home run who's not going to win that you're going to get on a course like this. Cameron Young's just too talented all the way around. I didn't want to pick a Rory or a Cantlay or a Schauffele. I thought Cam Young was my best big dog get to pick there. Joel Damon plays well at this course better than a lot of people think. I think if you crunch the category and the statistics and the shots gained, he's like third or fourth overall behind Day and Rory at this course in specific on what he's done on shots gained. And Taylor Pendrith is my guy. He's my Will Gordon, so to speak, for you. He's been on that leaderboard so much, and you've seen his name so much. And I thought he was going to do something last week. He didn't. He's on the precipice of maybe not winning, but getting a top three and getting you a ton of points and a ton of money. Taylor Pendrith was a guy I wanted to look at with that. Did you look at any of these guys here on your DFS?
Yeah, I can't get behind David. I'm sorry, but Pendrith is fine. I think he has the skill set that matches up well here. But yeah, as far as the other guys, they're no brainers in my mind, especially just being in your player pool. I mean, Cameron Young, Victor Hovland, Tommy Fleetwood is a great core to build around. Sorry, I can't get behind David, but I do like Pendrith. I was on him last week too, and obviously didn't play as well as we both hoped. But he has the skill set to get around this golf course pretty well. So I like him. I like him as a value this week for sure.
Those are Drew's picks, my picks. Hey, Drew, you mentioned at the beginning of the show that, you're hoping that things only get better for you here. Obviously, this space of golf gambling and DFS is relatively new, and we're not sure where it's going to go with growth of the game, et cetera, stuff like that. What are you hoping to do with this? I mean, are you trying to do more and more? Are you looking to do this for fun? What's your goal with all of this?
From like a content side or playing side? What do you mean?
Everything, everything. Like, where do you see this going for you?
Yeah, so I think when I first started it, it was grand ambitions of being like full time media. So the idea was I could be on the grounds, I could do, I could merge my golf background with DFS and kind of merge that content with being inside the ropes, doing content media, and maybe get picked up by the Golf Channel or something. That was probably like my grand ambitions. And as it's kind of progressed, I've kind of sided more with the golf data side. So I've become more reliant on golf data and providing that out for a lot of our subscribers. But I've gotten really into the weeds of like finding nuances and how data is basically consumed by the DFS players. So like the strokes gain data is a perfect example. It tells a really good story of how a tournament unfolded, but a lot of times it doesn't tell you how we're going to project for the next week. And an example would be like 17 at Sawgrass. Guy plays great all week, and he hits one in the water. He loses 2 strokes on approach on one hole, and it shows him negative for the week, and he was probably positive a stroke and a half or something. It changes your whole mindset for the next week. So I've kind of gone a little bit. I do content obviously for Run Pure and for Fantasy Golf Bag, but a lot of my mind is based around data. I think there's a big edge, and a lot of PGA Tour players are moving more towards the data side. They're getting these statisticians to help them kind of game plan golf courses, and that's kind of the direction I want to go. So I'm going to keep playing DFS. Prize pools are huge. I think this is like the 3rd biggest sport on DraftKings and FanDuel.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it's been huge. So betting is being picked up, in all the different states. So that's obviously a big thing. But I just love the idea of kind of quantifying golf and finding ways to quantify performance. So that's kind of the mindset that I have now is moving towards the data side more in depth. I just love it.
So if your ultimate goal was to do this for Golf Channel, back in the day, was your ultimate goal to play PGA Tour golf? You played in college, right?
I did. Yeah, I went to Q school a couple times,
Yeah.
and yeah, I went to Q school twice, and didn't get through first stage, but I had shoulder surgery 2014.
Oh,
Ended up getting a job, and it seemed pretty easy. I could sit at a desk all day and get paid instead of going out on the golf course, beating my head against the wall and losing money. So I regret it a little bit, but things work out, and I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason. So that's probably why I'm sitting here with you today. But yeah, I did have grand ambitions. That's kind of the way my mind works. Grand ambitions, trying to win a Millie Maker, trying to make golf media work out. So it's just how my mind works. Think big.
This was fun. I want to have you on again here, Drew. Thanks for being on Find the Fairway Live. You got some valuable information that I think the people who even are just trying to get into this could take away from the way you go about things, and maybe they'll make some money too.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Happy to do this anytime. And yeah, it's a fun game. It's a problem. You're just trying to solve it. So take all the information that you can get and try to make educated decisions, and then see how it works out. I love it.
Wells Fargo Championship on the PGA Tour. We'll see you next time.